Hello students, today we talk about literary terms, metaphor and simile. These terms are very common in literature and frequently used in prose and poetry. It seems that most of the students are familiar with these terms. Today we look into this term with examples. These terms used for analogy. These terms works on the principle of analogy in which something is compared to something. How we compare or the way uh, decide we are using simile or metaphor. So simile and metaphor, both terms used for comparison. A comparison is made between two things which has one common similarity. We must remember that things must be of different type, different species or category, and there although there difference, but there must be a single similarity. When we say something is like something, we use simile, and when we say a thing A is B, we use metaphor. We will discuss in our following example. On the basis of comparison, we have mainly three devices: simile, metaphor, and conceit. In our previous video, we have discussed about conceit. That conceit is an elaborated metaphor. So let's first talk about metaphor. What is metaphor? A metaphor has its origin from Greek word metaphora, which means to transfer something to something. Is a figure of speech. Normally it is considered figure of thought that directly compares one thing to another for rhetorical effect. And metaphor imaginatively draws a comparison between two unlike things. It does this by stating that thing A is thing B. Metaphor is used for special effect, some artistic effect. Uh, Now look at these common example of metaphor. Bill is an early bird. Life is a highway. Her eyes were diamonds. These are very common metaphors. Here we see Bill. Bill, a person, is compared to a bird. Life is an abstract idea, is compared to highway. Her eyes compared to diamonds. Here we see Bill is a different kind of thing and bird is a different kind of thing. One belongs to bird and one belongs to human beings, and there is one common similarity of their early rising. Here life and highway, her eyes and diamonds. There is one thing common between them, a common similarity, that is of shining. Now takes some literary example. The very famous one is from William Shakespeare's As You Like It. All the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. A very beautiful analogy, the use of metaphor. Here, world is compared to a stage, and men and women compared to players. So this is an example from As You Like It by William Shakespeare. Let's take another example by William Shakespeare, tragedy Romeo and Juliet, where Romeo says, "But soft what light through yonder window breaks, it is east, Juliet is the sun, Juliet is the sun. Juliet is compared to sun. Juliet, a human being, sun, an inanimate body. But there is one similarity, that is of shining. The famous critic I. Richards used a terminology in the reference of metaphor when we compare two things. He said one thing is tenor and another thing is vehicle. The subject that we compare, it is called tenor, and the object whose attributes we apply on the subject is called vehicle. In this example, the world is subject which is compared to a stage. So world is tenor and stage, the object whose attributes apply to the subject world, is vehicle. And the second, man and women, is tenor and player, vehicle. And in the example of Romeo, the Juliet is tenor and sun is vehicle. For further discussion of metaphor, let's take a very beautiful example from William Shakespeare's tragedy Macbeth. Here, life is compared to a walking shadow. As I read, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hours upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Life is compared to walking shadow and to a tale. These are example of metaphor. Let's say take some another example. Dickinson poem Hope. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Here hope, an abstract idea, is compared to feathers to birds, and as the same in the same way the birds fly, the hawk also fly. So there's comparison between two ideas, two things. One is abstract and one is a concrete. Another example from The Storm by Kate Coppin. Her mouth was a fountain of delight. And another example, The Call of by H.P. Lovecraft will live on a placid island of ignorance. So all this was about metaphor. Through various examples, we have noticed that metaphor is a direct implementation of one thing's attributes to, to simile. Its definition in a simile, a comparison between two distinctly different things is explicitly indicated by the word like or a. Two things that are different and comparison is expressed through words like or as. So it's an apparent comparison. The example is before us. I wandered lonely as a cloud. This is a very famous example from Daffodils by William Wordsworth. Here, poet compares the quality of wandering of himself and of cloud through a simile that as a cloud wander, in the same way I also wander. So here, the two different things. One thing is cloud, another is the poet, and there one thing is similar, that is wandering and loneliness. So this is a beautiful example of simile. Another example from P.B. Shelley's poem To a Skylark. This poem has a lot of similes where the bird skylark compare to various natural phenomena. The one is before us as I read, higher, still and higher from the earth thou springest like cloud of fire. As the cloud of fire. In the same way, bird is flying higher and higher. So this is also example of simile. Next, take another example from the same poem where, as I read, like a poet hidden in the light of thought, singing hymns unbidden till the world is wrought, sympathy with hopes and fear it is heeded not. The bird skylark again compared to a poet. Here one animal and other is human being, but there is common similarity of hidden, being hidden in the light of thought. Next example from Christina Rossetti's poem, A Birthday. My heart is like a singing bird whose nest in a water shoot. My heart is like an apple tree whose boughs are bent with thickest fruit. My heart is like a rainbow shell that paddle in a Halcyon sea. Here, heart is compared to bird, apple tree, and a rainbow. So these all are very beautiful example of simile. In our today's class, we have discussed about very common literary term simile and metaphor in the light of various literary examples. A metaphor is an implied comparison, a simile is an explicit comparison. The last example, fox. As sly as a fox, simile. A sly old fox is a statement, and he is a real fox is a metaphor. Thank you very much for watching.